back.
We are.
And we are talking about the key profile for most of our listeners today, breaking 250K in billings annually.
That is a very good observation of what most of our clients are.
How much of the market actually is there?
About a year and a half ago, I had done a presentation to a bunch of businesses, and I did my research. I looked at the labor department. 90% of all people in business are under the $250,000 a year threshold.
Wow, that's huge.
That is huge.
Now, Joel, when you say 90%, are we counting people who are reporting that their employment is maybe with a university or a school system? Or are we talking about simply independent cleaning businesses?
Building service contractors
Okay.
of sorts. So again, a maid service, maybe it's a window cleaning company, maybe it's a power washing company, maybe it's a hood cleaning company, duct cleaning. There's so many facets of the cleaning world.
Sure.
But 90% of all those that say that they are individually in business for themselves or through a franchise system are under the 250,000 threshold.
Okay. One of the things that strikes me there is that is a massive chunk of this portion of business or portion of business owners, but that the principles we talk about here, geared primarily to commercial janitorial, could really apply to almost any of those businesses.
And that's why I try to keep a lot of the topics that we talk about very generic, because it can be used in many different industries. And I do know that there's companies out there that definitely have more than $250,000 in billing. I have on my consulting side a clients that I work with that are between like 350 and $500,000.
Mm-hmm.
But still, that magic threshold of financial freedom everybody talks about is working to get to that almost $2 million threshold. And it's a big struggle, because when you're around that 250,000, as we've done in a previous podcast, you're still very much working in the business instead of on the business. And it's not until you get between that $1 million to $2 million that you start having a lot of the right pieces around you that can start taking things off your plate. Again, we talked about that in another podcast about the many hats that we wear.
Right.
Because we as small businesses and business owners are busy doing all the things that larger corporations tend to have other people to do. And until you can generate dollars in revenue, you can't afford individuals like that working for you. Or maybe you're outsourcing pieces to other companies that fill those gaps.
So for our listeners, how do we crack that? We're approaching that 250K, or we're there and we've been stuck there for 3 years.
I mean, it does take a while, and it takes focus, dedication. It's having some systems that are in place, maybe some of them electronically. I work with Aiden Rig that helps do some of that type of stuff for you, because when you're in business and have about $250,000 in sales, you, the business owner, probably is not doing cold calls anymore.
Right.
So you have to have a system in place that's doing those touches to get people to realize who you are, what your company name is, what types of services that do you provide. And that usually takes between 7 and 13 touches. If you just pick up the phone and say, hey, this is Joel and I want to clean your building, it's the first time they ever heard of you, you're probably not going to get the work.
Well, that's one touch.
That's one touch. And when you're that busy and you have clients and you have employees at $250,000, most of the time you don't have the time in your day to allot to spending 1 or 2 hours on just cold calling to get the number of dials that you need, because there's outside firms that'll do 200, 300 dials a day that you can purchase and have do the work.
By the way, we know someone who's great at that. So dear listener, if you are looking for someone, please contact Joel. Boy, do we have a guy for you.
So there are things that are like that you don't have time as a business owner, because you got to do inventory, you have to do supplies, you have complaints, you have new clients coming up, you're working on quotes for new potential work. You have all these other tasks that you're doing throughout the day. You have to start offloading some of those items in order to get through that $250,000 barrier. The other thing is people have a problem with trust. What, did I say something wrong? Did I say something wrong? The word trust?
Joel, one of the reasons that we go into business ourselves is it's part of who we are. We want a certain level of control. We don't mind taking responsibility for those things. Listener, if you're shaking your head, you're equally guilty, just like Joel and I are nodding our heads at each other right now.
Yes, we are.
And we understand that that's who and what we are. That's okay.
personal pride.
But at some point, in order to grow, you have to be able to hand something off.
You do. And finding somebody that either works currently in your organization or works outside your organization, or maybe even a smaller competitor that you can acquire that business and help your business grow that way. So there are ways that you can get through this $250,000 barrier. But it does take an element of trust in putting your neck out there, knowing you have to take things off your plate in order to get to the next level, because there's still only so many hours in a day.
What I hear is we have a business owner, probably a commercial cleaning business owner, maid service business owner, cleaning business owner. They've been at this for a little while, 10 years, 2 years, 15 years, I don't care. But they haven't gotten well past $250,000 in billings annually. They're stuck there. There's probably a list of 25 things that they should be doing.
Probably.
What 3 do you recommend?
First one I would recommend is that I'm going to be teaching a web class with Aid and Rig that people can sign up for. If they miss that opportunity, there will be a rebroadcast of that at a lower price because they won't have the interaction with the 2 speakers, which are Aiden and myself. The next thing is that we have a couple of books coming out on sales, particularly for smaller companies that, can kind of get that foothold going. That will be out, one of them probably before summer and the other one right around fall for a release for download, in addition to coaching. If you really want to get past that $250,000 in business and you're struggling to do it, there's nothing wrong with hiring a coach to get you through the next phase. Maybe it's a 3-month time, maybe it's 6 months. Most people will work with you on how long that you want to spend on a coach. I know clients I work with and on a per diem basis. I have clients that I work with on a monthly basis. So it's all what that person is willing to put into themselves, because you have to invest in yourself.
Having someone who really has the understanding of being in the trenches in this business is just priceless for that.
I personally think that's the truth. I still own a building service contracting company, and I deal with the same issues and problems other people have. And I've even hired coaches to be able to get me through some of the breaks, because there's times you can't see the forest from the trees.
Right.
And you do need that outside look and holistic look and ask questions, maybe the difficult questions you don't want to ask yourself.
Or sometimes you can't see the rolls past the poop stains.
Oh, we see that daily.
Folks, if you really want to crack this thing and you want to increase your business, increase your profits, and feel like you've got a better handle on life, contact Joel. Links are below. We'll see you soon. Thanks, Joel.
You're welcome.